Our job begins where most advisors stop. Saving money is great, but how do you spend it without risk in retirement? Welcome to Every Day is Saturday with Brad Gatto and Matt Stahl, partners and private wealth managers at Fiat Wealth Management. In this podcast, we aim to broaden your knowledge about the financial world we live in today and make the boring and complex financial decisions fun, informative, and educational. Join us on this journey where Brad and Matt will explore different strategies on how to spend your money without guilt and have peace of mind knowing you are spending it the optimal way in retirement.
Embrace retirement, embrace spending. No. Those are not supposed to go hand in hand. But don't tell that to the folks at Fiat Wealth Management. Brad Gatto and Matt Stahl even named their podcast Every Day is Saturday as a nod to activity once you've left the job. I'm Patrice Sikora, and I want to know more about their philosophy and why they chose the name Fiat for their company. So let's start with that. All right, guys, who wants to do some explaining? Brad, Matt, where did the name Fiat come from?
I will jump in. We'll take this back to 2009. That's when we originally formed Fiat as a company. And if you think about what was going on back in 2009, we had the financial crisis. It was a very scary time for a lot of people. So we wanted to focus on giving people faith that things would go on. And if you actually look at the Latin meaning for the word fiat,
yes,
that is the definition. It is to have faith that things will continue on. And that's really the bedrock of what we established our entire firm on.
Brad, did you agree with the name?
Well, we have the name. Yeah, I did. Trying to come up with the name of a company is tough, right? And the idea of it being evergreen and lasting and making sense, not only today for us and our mission and our clients and what we wanted to represent, but also thinking down the line 5 years or 10 years or even further. I thought that the idea that Matt came up with was great. The meaning behind it was great. And it really just kind of kicked us off in the right direction as far as what we wanted to get accomplished.
Now, in your inaugural podcast, each of you mentioned culture and how that's so important to you within the company. But tell me, why is it important, not just for your team members, but for your clients?
Yeah, I think the root of the name of our podcast, Every Day is Saturday. So Patrice, you mentioned having that feeling after you've left the job. I would actually, our philosophy is taking that even further. So how about while you have the job? I've dug into a lot of coaching, and as part of that whole practice is coming up with what your personal mission statement is in life. And what I landed on is to inspire others to chase their dreams and see every day as an opportunity to do so. And I have 4 kids. Brad has 3 kids. We're both very active, helping coach. And, we lead very, very active, full lives. It can be really easy to get in the pattern of just living life day to day and kind of going through the routine. And we share the same philosophy of just taking a step back and recognizing we only have one shot at this life as we know it here. So why not make the most of it? Why not enjoy every day as much as we can and fill those days doing the things that fill us up and at the same time help others?
Yeah, I would just echo what Matt says. Matt really is better at driving that culture in our firm than I am. It's kind of a good yin and yang, if you will. But going back to just the name in general, this idea or concept, and really what resonated with me the most was that there's a certain amount of faith that goes into the relationships that we have. Well, not only with Matt and I together and running the business and being 50-50 partners, there's a lot of faith that I place in Matt and Matt places in me to be able to run our business in an efficient way and in a way, it's kind of like a marriage. I kind of joke around and say Matt is my business spouse. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of faith that goes into that, but also with our clients, because this is a very intimate relationship when you manage somebody's life savings. And so the thing that resonates the most with me is just this idea or concept that there's a lot of faith or trust placed in us by our clients to be able to do for them and achieve for them the outcomes that they want. And it's not lost on us, even after, going back to 2009, now here we sit in 2021, it's still with every client that onboards now 12 years later, it kind of is overwhelming to me, the amount of trust that they place in us to be able to do for them what we say we can do and get them or help them achieve the outcomes or goals and dreams that they have.
Well, obviously, you've managed to impart the culture to the clients. Matt, how do you drive that culture with your colleagues?
Yes. The overlap of the culture with clients and the culture with the colleagues, we see as way back when in our industry, it's a standard to go through and give your clients a rating. And if you hire an outside coach to come in, they're going to say, look at your whole book of business or your practice and give each of your clients an A, B, or C rating based on, is it a profitable relationship? Do you enjoy working with them? Well, a long time ago, we looked at each other and said, why in the heck would we ever want B and C clients? That's like saying, we both recognize we're not the best fit for each other, advisor and client, but we're just going to make this happen anyhow. So the measuring system that we've always used is, I actually credit Brad with this, but it is the grocery store test. So if we are out and about in the community at the grocery store and we see a client in an aisle, do you go out of your way to go talk to them? Or do you go out of your way to run away from them? or are you indifferent? And a long time ago, we said, well, why in the heck would we ever why in the heck would we ever work with someone where we wouldn't want to go out of our way to catch up with them and enjoy seeing them? And that overlays onto your week. So when we come in on a Monday and look at what our week holds, we never want to look at that calendar and say, I'm not real excited about Thursday morning at 11 a.m. And maybe there's not a personality fit. Maybe there's a trust issue. But if we don't get past those things with clients, then it's never going to work. Now, the cool thing about our industry, and we have this conversation with our advisors internally all the time, the really cool thing is we get to choose who we want to work with. So when we sit across the table from someone who's thinking about becoming a client, there's not just one decision being made. There's two decisions being made at the same time. So I want our advisors to be thinking, do I want to work with this person? And are we a good match? And is there going to be a two-way bridge long-term, or this is going to be an effective relationship where we get them the results that they want? And vice versa. Obviously, the client's making the same decision at that same time. Now, when we're talking about culture with colleagues, that is setting the tone. It's empowering advisors with that knowledge to know that they get to choose what they want this to be. And that's the kind of culture we want internally. Above and beyond that, we like to have a good time. And as we continue to roll out these podcasts, and as we continue to get more relaxed, you're probably going to see that we like to joke around. We like to have a good time. We like to get results for our clients, but that doesn't mean that we can't have fun while we're doing that. And that is a very important thing to us as well. Above and beyond that, and I would actually like to pass the baton to Brad to talk about this, but it's one thing to say, hey, we run a profitable business and our revenue is 200% year over year. You know what? If we're not contributing to the world in some way beyond that, in our opinion, we're not really making a difference. So one thing that's really important to both of us as founders and owners is the giving back element. And Brad is the right person to talk about that.
Well, if I could just add to the culture piece in general with our clients and also inside of the office and with the other advisors that work here at Fiat and the staff, it sounds selfish, right? Like when Matt says, we only want A clients, but at the end of the day, if if they don't pass the prospective client doesn't pass the grocery store test, and quite frankly, for us, then that relationship, yes, selfishly, it's not going to be great for us, but it's not going to be great for them either, right? It's a two-way street where if we're not excited to have them as clients, or they're not excited to be our client, then they're not going to get our best and we're not going to get their best. And ultimately, as a fiduciary, it states, I have to do what's in my client's best interest. And yeah, of course, part of that has to do with the actual recommendation and how the money's invested and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of that has to do with how I feel about them and how they feel about me. And if I can't give them my best because I'm not excited to work with them, then I'm doing them a disservice, and it's not good for either side. And quite frankly, it's the exact same thing in our office. If our culture in our office is that there's people that work here or that are part of our team that don't fit kind of the culture that we don't get along, Matt and I don't get along with, or whatever it may be, then we're going to look at it's just like looking at your calendar and seeing a client visit that you're not excited about. Maybe you don't get excited to go to the office because the culture and the dynamic in the office isn't great.
Oh, yeah.
That bleeds over into your clients. And now your clients are going to suffer because you're crabby, because you just don't like the people that you work with. And ultimately, that even goes back to our families. Matt mentioned we're both married. We both have kids. We're both raising children right now and very busy. And at the end of the day, I want to be the best husband and dad that I can. And if my job stresses me out above and beyond kind of the normal stressors of just owning a business, but because I just don't like my job, ultimately that's going to lead and bleed into my home as well. And it's going to affect all that kind of stuff. And so we put a very high premium on personality when it comes to not only the people that we bring into Fiat that work here, but also with the clients that we choose to work with. It's hard you can't separate them, right? Like everything in life affects something else. It's impossible to say I can sleeve out work and separate that from my home life, or I can sleeve out the staff at Fiat from the clients. It all has to work together. Maybe it flying in the face of driving profits or growing as fast as we can or whatever it may be. We've put this premium on culture. And I would argue, I don't know if that's cost us revenue necessarily, but so far so good. I still every single day, Patrice, I love doing what we do. When COVID hit and we got sent home, unlike a lot of people, I was ready to go back to the office. I was like, get me. I love being here. I love what we have. I like the people that work with us and for us. And, it means a lot.
This may not be answerable in one question, but when you're sitting across the table from a potential employee, what is the one thing you immediately look for?
This is an interesting question because we're actually interviewing people right now, and Matt and I are having sidebar conversations about how'd the interview go and what stood out to you. And so it's a timely question. The things that matter to us are, did we get along with them? Do they seem fun? Do they seem like they could fit in to the culture? Matt and I were just talking about this particular person that we were interviewing, and at the end of Matt and I's conversation, I said, well, did you ever figure out if they knew how to run any of the systems that we use? He goes, nope. And I was like, neither did I. I don't know if they have the technical expertise yet. Matt had a 30-minute visit with this person, and so did I. And after an hour in total, neither one of us have any clue if they technically are a fit for the job, because we spent the entire time on, getting to know them as a person. So,
and did you like them?
Yeah, I thought they were great. So did Matt. Should they ever become an employee of this firm, they'll probably listen to this podcast at some point. So
and know who they are.
Yeah.
Patrice, just to go further on that question, the one thing I could boil it down to is, if you've heard people talk about having an abundance mentality versus a scarcity mentality, if you really were to try to boil down everything that we're saying in the language that we use with our clients, in the language that we're focusing on internally, that's what it really comes down to is, does this person have an abundance mentality, or is it a scarcity mentality? And that carries over to other things. So in general, it seems that those that have an abundance mentality are much more optimistic. Now, that doesn't mean, looking through rose-colored glasses and not being realistic about things. But in general, an optimistic person tends to be a lot more enjoyable to be around for the rest of the people. And at the same time, it seems that translates to the clients and the culture in general. Above and beyond that, I think that what also fits in that is the fixed versus growth mindset. So going back to what Brad just said, technical skills are important, but we can get the most brilliant person in here from a technical standpoint. And if they're not functioning with the team, we work in a fairly fast-paced environment. If they're not functioning with the team, it doesn't matter how good the technical output is. It does matter more how they can cooperate with the team and accomplish the results that we're looking for.
Right.
So I would say, if I boiled it down, that's really what it comes down to. That's what I am looking for. And a lot of it for me, as goofy as this sounds, is just straight intuition. Am I getting a good feeling about that person, or am I not? And that is tough to boil down.
All right. Intuition. I love it. Because how many things in life are intuition when you come right down to it? You've got to have that feeling, that gut feeling for them. You're absolutely right.
Right.
Now here you're talking about your clients and how to spend their money. I love the attitude. Let's spend that money, not just in retirement, but whenever you have it. Okay. But really, what does it mean? Does it mean going out and, I want that new sofa, I want that new car? And how did you choose this as a value proposition?
Yeah. To rewind. So
okay.
Brad and I, we established this firm in 2009, and then we took a break for a while, and we kind of rekindled Fiat as you see it now back in 2017 and 18. As part of that, I look back now and I look at this, and I don't know if Brad will use the same words, but it was one big experiment. And we looked at each other and said, let's turn on the marketing dial. Let's turn it way up. We both recognize that we're going to stumble a whole lot. We're going to make a lot of mistakes. There's going to be a cost of tuition in doing all this. But some of the things that we learned from that have formed and shaped how we describe what we do for our clients now. We crank up the marketing dial. We start doing in-person workshops throughout the Twin Cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul, where we are. It was a big experiment. Brad and I were talking to people face to face, and we got to hear firsthand from them, what are the issues that they are struggling with? Now, if you don't do that and you just observe what you hear on the radio or you hear on the TV, you would make the assumption that majority of the people that you talk to, their biggest issue is they don't have enough money. And I'm not making light of that. That is the case for some people, but majority of the people that we're having the conversation with, that was actually not their issue. Their issue was they've been told something all along. Our industry does a great job. The financial industry does a great job of saying, you don't have enough. You're never going to have enough. That gets pounded in your head for years and years. And for someone to sit down and say, guess what? You have enough. I think that actually carries over to saying you are enough. Again, not to get too into the intuition side of things, but to say that you have enough. Now, let's put some boundaries around this to make sure that you are spending this correctly. Mm-hmm. You can wake up Monday morning, not worried about what you see in the newspaper. You have peace of mind and you're sticking to your plan, and you're not concerned about what financial markets are doing or, what the headline is. You can stick to your plan and have the peace of mind to know that we're going to do the things that you want to do, and you're going to get the results that you want to, no matter what's going on around you.
Yeah.
That's really where we started to form this whole concept of teaching people how to spend their money. A majority of the people that were showing up to our workshops, that wasn't their issue. It wasn't that they didn't have enough money. It's that they had no idea on a big picture scale of how do I do this? They've spent years and years saving and saving. That's how they got to where they are now. And now their issue is really, what do I want to do? And can I give myself permission to do that? Now, the boundaries piece of that is, are we doing this from an optimal tax standpoint? Is our money going to last? So there's obviously boundaries there. And Brad will expound on that, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, Patrice, we enter most people's story at the point where most of their saving is done. Right. They've worked for decades, and now they're nearing retirement. They're in retirement. This is where we typically meet people. The idea or concept of continuing to live this life of frugality and kind of as a pauper and fearful of spending any of your money, it comes down to this statement I think that I made to you in the episode that I recorded with you a couple of weeks ago, but I'll say it again. There is no true freedom without boundaries. And so it's just about setting appropriate boundaries. If you think about working in your working years and you're paid every 2 weeks, you're paid once a month or what have you, one of the primary reasons you feel comfortable spending your money is because you know it's coming in again.
Right.
Right. You're going to get the next check, next 2 weeks, next month, whatever it may be. But it gives you this permission to go, yeah, this pile of money that I just got, I can do and disperse it however it needs to be dispersed because, I got this cadence coming in.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then they get to retirement and all it is a big pile of money, whatever that pile is. It's bigger for most people than it's ever been. Usually, the day you retire is the biggest pile you've ever had. Unless, of course, the markets weren't very nice to you recently. But for the most part, right, like it's a significant pile of money. And again, everybody's significance or would be big to them is going to be different. But it's this daunting thought of, well, what in the world do I do now? Because I don't have this sense of security that I got this paycheck coming in.
And the thing is, you're looking at this going, how am I going to make it last?
That's it. And what it comes down to is that comment of there's no true freedom without boundaries. The boundaries that they have when they're working are you only get your money in small chunks at a time. Right? Your employer's not prepaying you a year ahead of time or 5 years ahead of time or 4 decades ahead of time and just giving you a pile of cash and saying, this is your paycheck for the next 30 years, spend it wisely. You're not getting another paycheck again, yet you get to retirement. And that's kind of what it is, right? You've got this
very true
pile of money and they're like, here, this is your paycheck. Now you got to figure out how to put your own boundaries around it. And that's a scary thought. So behaviorally, that's a big problem. Behaviorally, it's also a problem, the fact that you've been living below your means your entire life, which is why you have a pile of money. Right?
So the question then becomes, you've got this pile of money and you're going to set your own boundaries. Do you set them stricter than they need to be?
See, that's where we come in. Because at the end of the day, everybody's different, Patrice. And this is going to sound like a politician's answer, but it's true. Everybody's pile of money is different. Everybody's situation is different. And at the end of the day, Matt and I's job is not to define the boundaries necessarily for the clients. It's to ask them what they want and then help them figure out how to define those boundaries with the outcomes that they seek. Okay, based on these things that you want to do and the travel you want to do or the giving you want to do or the monthly expenses that you have in your life or whatever it is that you have going on. Here's some good parameters and boundaries we can set up that give you the freedoms to actually spend this and know you're not going to run out of it. Know that you're going to be able to hand off to your kids what you want to hand to your kids or to a charity or to be able to do the travel that you want to do, whatever it is. We just got to set up rules to the game, so to speak.
You're helping give them permission.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I get made fun of all the time because I have little sayings and I say them again and again and again inside of this office. But one of the things I say to people, and I live my own personal life this way. And so this is kind of how my own story and philosophy of life kind of overlays into the way that I interact with my clients. Patrice, I could walk out the door today and get hit by a bus.
Please.
I have no idea though. Right. So like there's this idea of I have to save for tomorrow and I have to save for 10 years from now. I have to save for 20 years from now. And that's all prudent and it's good and all these things. But at the end of the day, I don't know if I have tomorrow. Armed with that thought, how do you live for today, but be smart about tomorrow. I'm not going to get into my own personal faith story, but one of the things that is talked about in the Bible, whether you believe in it or not, it's just a good concept, is it just talks about this idea that it's good to save, right? It's good to be smart with your money, but it's also not good to build extra storehouses because you've saved so much that there isn't an eye towards what you could be doing today, right? You've got to find this happy medium, and that's where these boundaries come in. And so quite frankly, my industry is full of advisors that are probably really good at helping people grow their piles of money, chasing rate of return, building really efficient portfolios and all that kind of stuff, which is great. And I'm glad that they're out there doing it. Where our value proposition comes in is, okay, you've got a pile of money. How in the world do you spend it now? How do we give you permission to spend it? What boundaries do we need to set up? Because ultimately, we want the next 10 years of your life to be the best 10 years of your life, right? You didn't save this pile of money to then sit back and worry about it your entire retirement. Nobody dreams of that in their retirement. They don't come sit on our couch and like, well, Matt, Brad, now that I'm retired, I'm really looking forward to stressing out about my money and figuring out how to not spend it.
Which is what a lot of people actually do.
But that's it. That is what they do. And they don't do anything. That's the problem. And they don't take the vacations they want to take, and they don't give the money to their kids that they could probably afford to give, or, remodel the kitchen that they haven't done anything to since 1976. Yeah. All the things, right?
This then rolls into the name of the podcast. Every day is Saturday. Tell me about that.
It's time to party. That's what that means. So party has a lot of connotations.
Oh, yes, it does.
It does. When Matt and I were trying to figure out what fit our culture as far as the name is concerned, it goes back to the same thoughts we had with the name Fiat and what's going to be evergreen, what's going to live on, and what frankly gives us the latitude to not just be two financial guys always talking about financial things. We want people's lifestyles. Matt mentioned earlier this idea of people that just kind of have a positive outlook on life. Every day is Saturday is a very positive outlook, right? Nobody doesn't look forward to Saturday, right? It's a Monday that we all dread. Saturday is the best day, because it's the first full free day in the week, and you still have Sunday afterwards to recover from whatever it is that you did on Saturday. We just wanted to have a name that signified this culture of, look, you get one shot at this thing called life. And on one hand, there is this idea that you could get hit by a bus tomorrow. On the other hand, we got to be smart about the fact that you also may not get hit by a bus and you may be around for a very long time. But at the end of the day, people don't save a pile of money to have a pile of money. They save it for a purpose. So they save it for an outcome. And so we wanted to create a podcast where we're going to have episodes where we talk about these boundaries, right? And what are some things that we can be doing? What are the smart financial, like what you would expect out of two financial advisors, right? And we hope to bring some color to that and educate in a fun way. But we also want to tell other people's stories. We also want to have episodes. Matt and I were talking about this the other day. I was like, how fun would it be to have our moms?
Oh my gosh, I'd love that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know that my mom would love it, but I think she'd do it if I asked. We would just want to bring stories to help people understand how other people are living their lives in this way or this mantra of every day is Saturday. What are the things that they're doing that have brought them joy, that have brought purpose, that have brought this optimism into their lives as well?
I'm envious of these people that you've been talking to. I can't wait to hear their stories. That'll be fantastic. I really. Now, listeners to this podcast, how can they reach you if they've got questions or they just want to touch base with you and talk a little bit more about this?
Yeah, the best spot to find us is on our website. So it's www.fiatwm, as in wealthmanagement.com.
Let's make sure everybody knows how to spell Fiat. It's F-I-A-T.
Yes, correct. If you go on there and you select the About tab, you will see our whole assembly of advisors, and you can schedule a time with them right there on the website. That's
awesome. Matt Stahl, Brad Gatto of Fiat Wealth Management. Get the latest episode of their podcast every day is Saturday. All you have to do is subscribe. Of course, you can impress your friends and your colleagues, too, by sharing. I'm Patrice Sikora, and let's talk again later.
Thank you for listening to Every Day is Saturday. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Fiat Wealth Management or Foundation's investment advisors. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.